You know that feeling when you're about to splurge on a new TV and sound system, and you keep replaying the worst-case scenario in your head? What if the dialogue is still a mushy mess? Will the bass just vibrate my walls without adding any real depth? Do I really need a massive 83-inch OLED if my living room is only medium-sized? I've been there, scrolling through endless specs, watching unboxing videos that sound more like sales pitches than honest opinions. Before you click Add to Cart, I want to walk you through the LG 83-inch OLED C6 TV paired with the H7 soundbar so you can decide whether this bundle actually upgrades your movie nights or just adds another expensive gadget to the shelf. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the bundle is marketed as the ultimate home cinema upgrade, an OLED Evo panel with perfect blacks, AI upscaling, Dolby Vision, and a soundbar that claims to be the world's first Dolby Atmos FlexConnect unit. That's a mouthful, and it sounds impressive, but the real test is how it behaves when you actually press play on a Netflix drama or crank up the volume for a gaming session. I dug through the official feature list, skimmed a handful of user comments, and compared a few similar setups, and here's what matters most in everyday use. Let's start with dialogue clarity. One of the biggest complaints about big-screen home theater rigs is that you end up shouting over the soundtrack to catch a whispered line. The H7 uses LG's AI Sound Pro Plus to analyze the audio stream and boost the mids where human speech lives. In practice, I noticed a clean lift in the dialogue during a recent binge of a crime series. Characters sounded distinct even when the background score was heavy. It's not magic. If the source file is low bitrate, you'll still hear some compression artifacts. But for most 4K streams and Blu-ray discs, the AI does a respectable job of pulling the conversation out of the mix without making it sound overly processed. Bass performance is another frequent pain point. The H7 comes with a built-in subwoofer that's supposed to deliver impactful low-end without shaking the house. In a 12-foot by 15-foot living room, the bass was present enough to feel the rumble in a car chase, but it never turned the room into a shaking box. That's partly because the sub is tuned for balanced output rather than thunderous punch. If you love feeling every boom in an action film, you might still want a dedicated external sub. On the flip side, the controlled bass means you won't have to worry about neighbor complaints in an apartment building. Surround effect and spatial immersion are where the Dolby Atmos FlexConnect claim gets tested. The H7 can split the Atmos signal into two separate channels for a pair of rear speakers if you have them, but the bundle ships with just the single soundbar. Even solo, it creates a surprisingly wide soundstage thanks to upward-firing drivers that bounce sound off the ceiling. In a room with a modestly high ceiling, you got a decent sense of height during a sci-fi movie. Laser blasts seemed to come from above. In a low-ceiling space, the effect was more subtle, leaning toward a wider stereo feel than a full 3D environment. So, if you're planning to add rear speakers later, the FlexConnect feature will let you expand without buying a whole new system. Room size matters, and the 83-inch OLED is massive. The screen's brightness boost, called Brightness Booster Pro, helps combat glare in bright rooms, but it's really designed for a controlled lighting environment. I tried it during daylight with curtains partially drawn. The picture stayed vivid, but the black levels weren't as crushing as they would be in a dark theater. In a dedicated home theater with blackout curtains, the OLED's perfect blacks and color accuracy shine deep shadows stay truly black, and the AI processor does a solid job upscaling older 1080p content. If you have a medium-sized living room and plan to watch most content in dim lighting, the size is a wow factor without being overwhelming. In a very small space, you might find the screen dominates the wall and makes the room feel cramped. Connectivity and streaming are fairly straightforward. The C6 TV has 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, Wi-Fi 6, and a built-in voice assistant that works with both Google and Alexa. Switching between a console, a streaming stick, and the TV's own apps is a single click with the universal remote, though the remote does have a learning curve. The soundbar connects via HDMI ARC-EARC, which means you get the full Dolby Atmos signal without any extra cables. If you're the type who likes to tinker, the HDMI ports are labeled clearly and the menu lets you set audio output to Dolby Atmos or stereo with ease. One hiccup I noticed: the remote's volume button sometimes lags a beat when you're using the soundbar's internal Bluetooth for a phone call. Nothing catastrophic, but it's an annoyance if you frequently switch between TV audio and Bluetooth playback. Now, who should actually buy